Hello, I am joining you live today because today is a very big day in my life. In fact, I think it's one of the reasons I love fall because serious change took place in my life this week 16 years ago. I shared this story in my newsletter, so I thought that it would be worth sharing it live. If you're not in my newsletter, then it'll be news to you. So I want to share how I took this action that was so scary. And I had wanted to do this action for like years, literally years. And so I took it finally because I got sick of being scared. And I came to the realization that I was more scared of not doing it than actually doing it. And I think sometimes we get to that point where we finally take action. And so my action, it really was a combination of actions. So it started a week ago, culminating today. You might have heard me tell the story, but it's worth sharing every year because I really want to inspire you to to make a change that you've been thinking about, but you've maybe been too scared or you've talked yourself out of. This logic brain gets in the way all the time of the things that we really want to do, that either our gut or our heart, because they're all below the neck and they're telling you something. So what I did a week ago today is that 16 years ago, I made a phone call to my ex-boyfriend. And what had happened was I was at a 30th high school reunion about 3 weeks prior, and his name came up. Now, this is a guy that I dated in college, and I was madly in love with him, and I thought he was madly in love with me too. But, sometimes how college relationships go, and we had some rocky times, and both being very young and immature, of course, trying to get our way. I look back and I think, oh my gosh, if only I had the wisdom I have now, things would have been so different. But we were both very stubborn and wanted it our way, and weren't willing to budge. And so at some point, I was like, okay, I'm just going to move on. And what happened is I quickly met somebody else, rebounded, it was, rebound relationship. And I ended up getting married very few short months later. And so I just got to work, living life, had two children very quickly. But I will say, I did make the mistake of getting married, uh, without having resolved that other issue. And there were some signs. So if you are young and listening to this, or you have a child who's contemplating marriage, maybe you want to share this video with him because I had the signs of, I'm not sure if this is right. In fact, the morning after I got engaged, I woke up thinking, am I doing the right thing? Well, that's a sign that you maybe should take a step back and not get married. Take some time before you get married. But I pushed through. I was determined, and because I was telling myself in my head, arguing with myself that this is the right thing to do. This will be a good marriage. He's a good man. He's going to be a good father. So these are all the things I was telling myself. So fast forward 25 years, and I'm going to be brutally honest and vulnerable because I know now that I did things and probably didn't do them in the right order. But I will tell you that I was very honest, with my ex-husband. We had conversations. I had expressed that I was not happy in the relationship. He was not happy as well. And so we had basically developed more of a roommate relationship later in our marriage as our kids got older and they left home. And so I was in this life of where I kept convincing myself I was fine and I should be happy and I should be grateful. I had a good job. We had a beautiful home. We had nice cars, nice neighbors, the whole thing that anybody would, in my position you'd think thrilled about. But there was something always missing. And I always had this little voice in the back of my head that I wonder what this person is doing. I wonder what this old boyfriend of mine, and I had a box that I had in my house that I carried around when we would move from home to home. And I would look at it when we'd move and I'd be like, I need to throw this away. And then I'd be like, oh, no, I'm going to just put it back into the storage room and tuck it away. I did not want to throw anything away. None of those memories I wanted to throw in the garbage. And I think sometimes that was in the back of my mind that someday there will be an opportunity to reconnect. That's the only thing that I can think, that somewhere deep in my soul, I knew that relationship wasn't over in some deep recesses of my body, my soul. And so fast forward to the September of 2006, and I was at a high school reunion, and his name came up. And it was weird because his name came up from a guy that I went to high school with, it was a mutual friend, although, this was a college boyfriend. So the three of us had gone to the same college, and he had played rugby with this high school classmate of mine. So his name was brought up. And from that point on, I really was having trouble getting his name out of my head. So I went to a wedding of a friend across the country. And at that wedding, I had a little bit too much wine. So you know how wine can give you a little extra courage. So I got a little extra courage, and I decided to make a phone call, although I had no idea where this person was, what his phone number was. I Googled it. So what I say now as a joke is I drunk Googled him. And so I found a phone number and I proceeded to call. And it happened to be his business phone number. And it was a Friday night. So clearly nobody answered. And so I left a message. I left this crazy message that, this was so-and-so, and using my maiden name because he wouldn't have known my married name. And just call me back, type of message. It was very short. And probably once I got on the phone leaving the message, I was like, what am I doing? Because I was cognizant enough to know what I was doing. So anyways, finished my trip, came home, didn't hear anything. And Monday was a holiday. And of course, I didn't think about it. Tuesday morning, my phone rang. And I looked at my phone as I was getting ready to answer, and I saw the area code because he lives in a different city than me, or lived. We now live in the same city. And so I picked up the phone, and it was him. And, I hadn't talked to him for years, and it was just like gave me butterflies. The conversation, we reconnected. We had this 45-minute conversation, catching up on each other's lives. And we decided to meet for lunch. And so because we didn't live in the same town, we had to plan it out. We lived 2 hours apart. So we decided we would meet halfway. And so today was the day that I met him for lunch. Today was the day that I saw that person that I dated 27 years prior. And it was a day that my life changed. And I like to say, well, it started the day I took action to make that phone call. But my gut, my heart was leading me to do that, was telling me. And I finally stopped talking myself out of that. And I came to the decision of, I want to at least take the risk of seeing, who he is, what he's like, I had no I think looking back, I didn't really have a plan to have a life with him. My goal was to get him out of my head. My goal was to, like, have like, meet with him and have closure finally, because what I say is that door was never closed. That door was like ajar. It was a crack. Um, and the thoughts of him would seep through that crack. And so what I wanted was closure. What I wanted was to say, "Hey, so great catching up," and, just part ways and move on with my life. So I didn't want to have any regrets, that I didn't just at least have that last conversation with him. And what it turned into was the door opening wide. Um, and I was married at the time, so that's where I want to be really transparent. And I know it's probably most, you know, talk show hosts would say never, that when they're talking to somebody and giving them advice, they'd probably say never meet with an old boyfriend without like sharing. You should always be like totally transparent with your husband. But I wasn't. But I will say that I went with the intent of not having a second meeting with him. And so at the end of that lunch, which we started at around 2 with our lunch, and we ended up sitting there at the table, uh, and we moved to a there was a downstairs, a restaurant had like a lunch dinner area, and then, well, I think it closed around a certain time, and then there was like a bar and you could eat more food downstairs. So we did eventually at like 5 or 6 move to the next level, but that's neither here nor there. So anyways, we were together conversing for over 7 hours. And so when I left that restaurant, I knew that I wanted to see him again. I knew that I wanted to pursue whatever that may be to pursue. And so I came home, and at the time my ex-husband and I weren't living during the week together. He was working in a different city, which obviously it shows a little bit about the lifestyle we were living. But anyways, so what happened is I came home and I said I wanted a separation, which had been in conversation over the years, a couple of times. And we had counseling. I will say we have 2 amazing children, and we worked really hard to keep our marriage together for 25 years, and we were very successful at that. And so it was really my goal to never have my children, although that's what happened ultimately is their parents got divorced, but they were adults. They were both graduating from college, and it's never ideal, no matter how old your kids are. But I felt that if I was going to be the model of a happy mother, I needed to pursue what would ultimately make me happy. And so I made the hard decision to get separated. So the next time I saw him, I was officially separated. And from today onward, 16 years ago, we have been together. And we got married in 2009, and we have a beautiful life together. And so I look back, and it was like, such a scary, scary action, like nauseatingly scary. And I might not have ever taken it if I hadn't gone across country to a wedding and had a little bit too much to drink. So maybe the timing was perfect for that. Sometimes I think, the universe plants these seeds, and we can either choose to water them and let them grow, or we can just step on them and step on what tries to bud. So that is my story. That is what I did 16 years ago. And I only say this because change is always scary, I think. But I also know that when we change, when we desire a change, and we think about the action we need to take, we are always thinking about the worst case scenario. We are always thinking about that's just the way our brain works because our brain wants to protect us. And we never think about the goodness that can happen. We never think about the positive outcome. And now my daughters have two step parents that are wonderful. And so and my ex-husband's very happy. And so I feel like uh, I had to take the action that would make us both happy, even though it was very difficult to do at the time. But in the end, it's all worked out. And I never imagined that it would be as amazing as it's turned out to be. And I also can't imagine if I had never taken any action and I was still sitting in a place of um, inaction, a place of fear. And I think the one thing that really was the straw was having a picture of me on my deathbed and realizing that I was going to have regrets if I didn't try and make a change and see what would come of it. So hopefully this has helped you. I mean, my story is a very is related to love, but this can apply to any kind of change you want to make. Could be applied to anything that you might be fearful of pursuing. Whatever it is, it's something that you've thought about, you might have dreamed about. I had dreams that were so vivid that I would wake up from. So what is that? What is that that you've been suppressing, that you've been denying? And what is it that you've been in this head of yours, you've been talking yourself out of? And it's a continual battle. There's other things that I talk myself out of, but now, thank goodness, I'm aware and I'm more I'm more willing to try change because I know that it can be our brain can only think is so limited in what it can be, and so it can be so much more. And so that is all I have to say. And Sue Ann said, my story is one of a very limited and privileged person. Well, I'm sorry you think that way. I don't know why you would think that, because maybe you thought that I had a lot of money to do those things. I don't know what you're thinking, but I will challenge you that your thinking is coming from a place of judgment. And people privilege is to me a judgment. So I would challenge you to think about what is possible for anyone, for you. For you don't have to be privileged to take and make change in your life. You don't have to be privileged to want something better for your life. You don't. There's a lot of free things and resources available for people who want to change their life and do something different. So I'd like you to just consider that and be open to the possibilities. And I'm sorry if you feel that way, but I hope that my message will resonate with just one person. And that's why I'm here sharing it. All right. All right. Thanks for listening.